So hello, everyone. Welcome to the AFIKRA Community Podcast. My name is Yasmin, and I'm your host today from Ramallah. I'm joined by my co-host, Maisa, who's based in London. Hey, Maisa.
Hi, how are you? How's the heat in Ramallah?
The heat wave is pretty bad. We're in the end of July. It's usually the hottest, like July and August. So if you know somebody like that has AC, you just run over to their house. Basically, it's really hot.
I've heard. Yeah, it sounds crazy.
I'm really excited about today. We've been kind of hearing a lot about this presentation from Berlin. So on the series today, we're hosting Mustapha Kammoun, and he's based in Berlin. He recently did a presentation there, and Berlin is one of our newest chapters. So it's very exciting to get more people on there and getting them to come here and talk to us.
Yeah, definitely. Berlin is, like you said, one of our newest chapters. It's such an exciting chapter. It's been a long time coming. And so definitely want to get more people involved there, presenting, being part of the team. And yeah, so by the way, if you're new to this podcast, each episode lets us meet AFIKRA presenters who have spoken at one of our events around the world. And I think this might have been the third event in Berlin, maybe the third or the fourth event in Berlin. And Mustafa, like every one of our presenters, was asked to choose a topic that allowed him the opportunity to explore something that was new to him. So something that he's not an expert in at all. And our goal is that this episode inspires others to become curious about other aspects of the Arab world's histories and cultures.
Yeah, and the format that Mustafa went with is a spotlight presentation. So out of our three formats, a spotlight basically is a descriptive presentation. It's inspired by one or more sources that the presenter is curious about, and Mustafa's choice was to explore the relationship between Kulthum and her writer and mentor, Ahmed Ramy. It's a thrilling story
of heartbreak.
And we'll get to of heartbreak. All right, so for now, let's dive in with Mustafa and get to hear about who Ahmed Ramy is and his whole story with Kulthum. Good morning. Good morning to you, Mustafa and Maisa. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing so well. I love doing these in the morning because when it's the first thing you do, it's still like the only thing on your mind. So we're very excited to have you on, Mustafa. And tell us where you're at right now.
I'm based in Berlin right now. And actually, the presentation I did was with the Berlin chapter.
Yeah. Was that the first event you had gone to?
Actually, it was the second. So I went to the first one, I think around April this year. And I really loved the concept and the presentations. And there I knew that I also had a chance to present. That's actually the first idea came to.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was so good. You're like, I have to do this.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask Mustafa, what made you want to present?
Yeah. Honestly, the participatory approach that I like, that people just come and talk about different aspects, different topics, from random things about the Arab war, whether related or not that related, and everyone is being engaged, talking about it from different perspectives, and then opening the floor for discussion. And then you can find even some people who are having other ideas or other perspectives about it. Was fascinating to me.
Yeah. What was the most memorable presentation or something you really liked in that first event?
It was Franca's presentation about during the French colonialism of North Africa. They had to take many soldiers from North African countries to go and fight in other wars, like the Indochina wars. And the presentation was about Moroccan soldiers or Moroccan people during the 1950s who were drafted by force to go and fight in the Indochina war in Vietnam. And then some of them, they just stayed there, and their people, they thought they died in the war, but actually they stayed there and they made families. They got married to women from Vietnam, and then they came back. And then you see the diversity and how people from Vietnam, they came to Morocco and they integrated into the society. That was very fascinating.
I remember that one. And what's amazing about that one and your presentation too, and a lot of presentations, is you'd think those are like really long presentations and, so many different sources. But that was a forward presentation, and that's taking like on a single source and like breaking down the whole story. And I think Franca's was Al Jazeera documentary or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so Mustafa, besides AFIKRA, you want to tell us what do you do, and like how is life in Berlin? What brought you there? What do you do there?
I recently moved to Berlin. I would say like 7 months ago. I moved there to work. My field of studies and my professional occupation right now is in information and cybersecurity.
Very different.
Not very
AFIKRA.
related to the subject of the presentation.
Okay.
But I would say, yeah, my life has been always like this. I have my preferences of work, of professional career, but at the same time, there are a few things that keep me always curious about history, about stuff, about music in itself.
So if you didn't know, now you know that Mustafa is a very smart person.
Mustafa, can I ask where were you based beforehand?
I am from Tunisia. So I was living in Tunisia for all of my life until 7 months ago. So I had this kind of new journey.
Amazing.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your curiosity and how you kind of mapped your curiosity into this new AFIKRA presentation, how it started and how you landed on your topic. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Basically, I would say it came a little bit by chance, because when I attended AFIKRA, and I already told you about how I like the concept itself, and Franca also asked me if I have any ideas to present. I was like, sure, I have so many, that's the problem. And I was thinking about some ideas to present, and Kulthum was by chance one of the subjects I was just by curiosity doing some research on during that time. And I said, probably it's a good time. Actually, Kulthum started her professional career as a singer and came to Cairo in 1923. And this year is 2023. So it marks exactly 100 years since she started singing, and the world discovered her as a singer. And I said, probably it's a good opportunity for me to present Kulthum. Probably we can get to the topic itself, but for me also, I didn't want it to be like a classical presentation, just Kulthum, how many songs she sang, etc., etc. Probably most of the people who are a little bit interested in the Arab world know about that. So I wanted to make it from a different perspective, through the eyes of someone else in her life.
And I think you did a good job at that, Mustafa, because so I was coaching Mustafa on this presentation, and I learned so much from him because I didn't know. I listened to Kulthum probably on my way to university. I live in Ramallah. I'm going to Bir Zayt. The things that the taxis would play are either like Kulthum or Fairuz or, the classics. So I listened so much to her, but I never really knew like I don't know if you'd call this the non-musical part, or maybe like I don't want to give it away, but the romance story basically that Mustafa brought in, so interesting, and he tells it in such a nice way. So yeah, let's talk about what this presentation is and what it's about.
Sure.
What's the title here? And
it was for me also kind of an exercise to come up with a title, because obviously I'm not gonna talk about Kulthum and her career only, but actually an important person that played a major role in her career. And he was obviously in love with her. And through that love, he was able to produce many of the masterpieces that Kulthum sung. That's why I decided to give it the title, A One-Sided Love Story That Lit Up the Star of the East. You know that Kulthum is well known in the Arab world as Kawkab al-Sharq, the star of the East. So I kind of improvise a little bit to find this title. So I'd say like Kulthum and Ahmed Ramy, and the guy, the name of the guy who was in love with her is Ahmed Ramy, obviously.
Yeah. So we don't really get to hear the credit or much. The audience doesn't get to hear much about the writer of these songs, this whole background story. So it's going to be exciting to dig in. We're also forwarding a book, right, Mustafa? So this is based on a book you were talking about. What's the title of the book?
Exactly. The title of the book is also very interesting because originally it was written by a French-Lebanese writer called Sélim Nassib. So I'll try to go to the book. Yeah. So the first version was written in French. It's called with the first name, Umm Kulthum. In English, it was translated as "I loved you for your voice," which is I find a very good title as well. In Arabic, كان صرحا من خيال فهوى, which is taken from one of her classic songs, Al Atlal, the Runes. So with every translation of the book or of the novel, there is kind of a change in the title. But basically, it talks from also the perspective of Ahmed Ramy. So it's also talking about Ahmed Ramy's journey through the life of Kulthum.
Yeah. Okay. Let's dive in. Let's get to know a little bit more about the story.
Yeah, sure. Basically, the story, I always would like to start it back in the years. So as I told you, Kulthum in 1923, she came to Cairo. She started singing for the first time. But she knew one of her early mentors. He decided to kind of support her. He was a very good composer of the time. And he gave her one of his songs as a kind of act of courtesy so she can sing it for the people. And then 1 year later, just a normal guy who just came back from France, where he was also very curious and very passionate about Persian poetry, especially the poetry of Omar al-Khayyam and the quatrains, what we call al-Rubaiyat. He just went to Paris and studied for 2 years Persian language in the Sorbonne just to be able to translate it translate al-Rubaiyat, these magnificent poems in Arabic. So he came back and he heard that there is this young lady singer who's singing one of his songs. So this song that this composer gave to Kulthum was his poetry, and he just gave it to the guy before he left Egypt to France. And when he came back, he heard that it's not the guy, actually. It's not this sheikh who's singing, but there is this young lady who's singing this song. And the song, the name is As-Sabbu Tafdahu Uyuno.
Yeah.
Which is also very hard to translate in English, but I came up with the best I can do, which is someone who is ardently in love gets exposed by his eyes. So he went there and he listened to her. And here I would like also to, in one of his interviews, Ahmed Ramy, he said, "I never heard in my life a voice with such purity, such deepness, and such greatness in my life." And he said that he almost cried when listening to her for the first time. And then after the concert was done and after she finished singing, that's how he met her. And she knew actually that he was the poet who wrote this poem that became the song. And then she asked him to write for her more songs and more poems. And I would say
Ahmed Ramy Mustafa was there from the very beginning then, right? You can say. We can mark this as Kulthum's beginning.
Sure.
At least as you said in Cairo.
Sure, exactly. And this is very, very important because you made a very good connection to the next topic or the next chapter, where Kulthum, as I said, was a very young girl coming from the delta, from the countryside delta of Egypt. She didn't know, aside from her great voice and her also ability to recite Quran and some religious songs, she didn't have any particular culture or particular education, etc. And he took her. He was in charge. He was working in the National Library, so he had only 1 day off, which was Monday. And for many years, he dedicated only that 1 day off just for Kulthum. And she called it the day of Sirami, which is Monday. And he started teaching her Persian language, French, and he also introduced her to mainly the most important Arab poetry, classic poetry like Ibn Arabi, like Al-Mutanabbi, the greatest poets, the greatest pieces of art also. So he was, in a way, he was her mentor, aside from writing her songs. So in a way, he was involved since her early career, not only in writing songs, but also to promote her through also the artistic scene in Egypt during that time. As a girl coming from the countryside, she didn't know many people. She didn't know many people also in the music scene. He helped her create her first orchestra, etc. So he was kind of a mentor and a teacher, and she embraced him for that. but she rejected him as a man.
No.
I
By the way, do we know at the time, like, so here comes Sirami, who's super committed, and he goes 2 years abroad just to like learn to translate something.
Yeah.
And here's somebody that's still in the very beginning of their career. What was the age gap between them at the time?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that too.
No, not much. Actually, Kulthum, it's very surprising because at that time they did not register a very, let's say in details, the date of birth. So there is kind of controversy, but basically she should have been born between 1896 and 1900. And he was just, I think, born in around 1895. So basically, basically there wasn't that huge age gap.
I imagined it to be a much bigger age gap with the relationship they've had, the mentorship-student relationship.
No,
Very
it wasn't. Actually, that actually tells a lot about Ahmed Ramy, because in his mid-20s, probably like my age right now, he already studied in the Sorbonne. He already works as in the library for indexing at the National Library. He was also established as one of the most important poets in his generation in Egypt. So to say...
Yeah, he was accomplished. He was accomplished. All right, so here we have the Monday, the day of Sirami.
So could we kind of say that Ramy discovered Kulthum, or had people started to hear about her before that?
Actually, people started hearing a lot about her since she was in the Delta. And actually, it was very hard for composers like Sheikh Zakaria Ahmed, was very important composers in the Arab world even, to convince her father to give up the life of countryside in Egypt and singing in Moulid or the normal parties or the religious parties, just to come and sing professionally in Egypt. So she came also, and she was very famous for that, but she kind of lacked the guidance. She lacked also someone who would put her in the way. Just one example, when she came, I think in the 30s also, she was invited by the monarch of Egypt to attend one of the special parties because her voice was really nice and they wanted her to sing and also participate in a dinner. She didn't have any knowledge on how to be in a high society gathering. So it was Ahmed Ramy who also even taught her how to use the fork and how to eat even in an official and a formal dinner in the royal palace. So I would say lots of parts of her life was already taken care by Ahmed Ramy.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you can see also, that is, I think, a picture. It should be traced back to the 1930s. I don't really know exactly where was the date, but this is to the left. You find Ahmed Ramy, and to the right, Kulthum at a young age, actually. And I think from that point, I would say Ahmed Ramy was really in love. He would describe in the book actually that. And I find this fascinating when he says that her voice had reached the point which set pain free. So he says he would just sing, he would just write the poetry. He would express his pain of desperate love, his feelings of love, his feelings of anxiety that is related to that love in poems that she would sing for an ever increasing audience. People would cheer up. People would be very, very happy and very thrilled to listen to these songs, and he would be always in the first row, even when he was, for 50 years actually of her career, from 1923 until 1973, he attended most of her concerts. Even if when he was a little bit sick or ill, he would choose also to come and sit and listen to his feelings, to his love sang by the lady.
It almost sounds very sad, doesn't it?
It was, and it raised a very big question for me, because also one of the things I like to talk about is how you can discover the different phases of this one-sided love story through the songs that Kulthum sang, and obviously written by Ahmed Ramy. And I would say my personal opinion that it kind of shifted from this kind of obsessive love in the beginning to a more poetic, mystic love, which is a love for no specific goal or with not a goal like to be married or something like that. It's just like the love for the love itself, which in my opinion, one of the purest forms of love that also explains why he also like got married at a later stage, and everyone in a way knew that he was in love with Kulthum, but yeah.
That must have been awkward. I'm just gonna say it.
Of course.
It must have been awkward. Like, I can't imagine like or being that person or the person that, you know, you're gonna get married to with these like rap sheets of like love dedications, you know, like around the world, the classics. That's a lot to compete with. Do we know anything about that part of his life?
Sure. Basically, yeah. There are lots of stories. Also, we don't have like lots of like, it's not confirmed 100%, but as you can see in the picture, he's really the guy. This is, by the way, pictures taken from him in the first row listening to Kulthum, and we'll see many pictures of these in the presentation where he's like, wow, fascinated. You can see the love in his eyes. He wasn't asked directly, but his wife actually was asked by journalists the usual question: is it true that Ahmed Ramy loves Kulthum? And she was very smart in responding to that. She says, but everybody loves Kulthum. I love Kulthum.
Aww. I mean, maybe that's true though. Maybe that's true. Like maybe we love like a good love story, and maybe we over romanticize this whole, you know, relationship that they had together.
Exactly. This is a very valid point, Yasmin, because Ahmed Ramy, in a way, he was once asked, but indirectly, so he just tried to respond as well. And he said, I love Kulthum the same way I love the Great Pyramid of Giza, of Egypt. I just look at it, but I would never think of climbing it or reaching it. I just look at it with fascination, and I appreciate its greatness. And this is actually a great analogy.
A great response. I bet that kept his wife happy, I'm sure.
Yeah. And we know, like, what do we know about Kulthum in that way? She never got married, right?
She did.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there like, I think there's some information about this in the presentation you did? Okay, cool. No spoilers.
Yeah. In the presentation, there was just something I added. I didn't dedicate like specific slide to it. But I also got into that. But I'm happy to respond, because Kulthum, she didn't get officially, I would say, married until the age of 55. She got married in 1952 with her doctor after her health situation was kind of worsened. So it was mainly a marriage of convenience more than really love story marriage. But there are lots of rumors that she got married maybe twice in the 30s and in the 40s. But it was kind of a secret marriage that ended up very quickly. The most famous one with one of her composers. His name is Mahmoud Sharif, but it didn't last for so long. And there is also a story about how Ahmed Ramy was really went really nuts when he heard that she got actually married. Yeah,
that rings a bell. I feel like that's a story I've heard before when you said the name. Okay, cool. So here's Ahmed Ramy, what we're seeing on screen, by the way. He's just like, he's in the audience and he's just admiring. And there's a guy right next to him, and he's also like in this trance. They're in this like trance.
Yeah.
There are these famous photos of the crowd reacting to Kulthum performing, and like people share them a lot on social media because they're just so like emotive. And so now I've seen this photo before, and now I know who this is. So this is very, very exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure Maysay will see many of them in the presentation. Let's prepare. This is very important. It's actually also another smooth transition to the next part. As you can see in the pictures, to the top, Kulthum singing, and beneath, you can see Ahmed Ramy's reaction. This is Ahmed Ramy, the poet, connecting with the music in an unbelievable way, listening, closing his eyes, going into fascination, being in the state of Tarab. Tarab is one of I would say, one of the pillars of this presentation, because I wanted it to explain it, because obviously there is no specific translation in another language. So I wanted also to explain a little bit what it means by Tarab in the Arab music. And I find this also very fascinating, because probably in contrast to Western music, where the show mainly is just the singer performing, a very good thing, and then the public listening. But in Arab music, actually, the performance depends heavily on the interaction of the audience, on the way the audience responds to that music. And that's one of actually the myths about Kulthum songs. They're not long. Kulthum song, if you listen to the original record of any long song, it doesn't exceed more than 15 minutes. But the way when she sings on stage, the way the audience responds, she keeps repeating in an unbelievable way. She would mix the melodies and the words and everything together. So she would repeat the same verse probably tens of times in slightly different ways. She would improvise even the melodies themselves. She would drift from the specific melodies set by the composers. She would just keep this like long in the stage, and this sends everybody into a trance state. Everybody would just go crazy with her songs and with the way she sings. And this is actually has a reverse actually effect on Kulthum, because she would even sing more when she sees that reaction on the audience. And this way, in just the way I would describe Tarab in the Arab in the Arab music, what you call Tarab, I would also show you another.
It's two-sided. From your own definition of it, it's two-sided, it seems, or maybe like one pulls the other from the performer and the.
That's true, Yasmin. The Tarab is the way that connection is created between the lyrics, the melodies, but also between the singer and the audience. And Maysa, as you can see, this is one of the pictures of the audience of Kulthum being fascinated by the way she sings and the way she improvises the melodies. She improvises the words and the lyrics. And here I should go back also to the role Ahmed Ramy played in her life, when he taught her a lot about poetry and also introduced her to most the greatest musicians of that time. Kulthum, when she went over in her career and she became that star of the East, she would even intervene to change the lyrics of a song. She would even intervene to change the music pieces or the melodies of one of the greatest composers. And some of them, they really felt like offended on how this singer
I was about to say, she must have had all this confidence to be able to just, improvise and take charge and be able to do what she pleases. You guys, don't these images make the best like emojis or reactions? Like, I want these on my phone. These are like just like face expressions that you kind of don't see. Just like one is like in complete shock. One is just in this like calm trance. The one at the bottom right. It's incredible.
Exactly. And here I would say also it's the power of the lyrics. And this is something I would also talk about, because as I told you in the beginning, you would understand the different phases of this one-sided relationship through the songs of Kulthum that Ahmed Ramy wrote. And one of my personal favorites is actually what you see in the slide, which is حيرت قلبي معك. You have puzzled my heart as I try to hide my love. Tell me what to do with you or what to do with my heart. It's one of the songs that I really like, and it also obviously expresses the feelings of Ahmed Ramy of helplessness, of desperate love on that time, and also how the people connect with it. How Kulthum herself connects with that and sings it as if she's kind of the victim of that of that one-sided love story. But the reality is it's
as if
the
she's
opposite.
on the receiving end.
And I don't know if we can play the video actually, but even like playing parts of this song when you see her trying to improvise, actually, especially improvising in this part, is just absolutely out of this world. In a way, I would imagine myself being within this crowd and listening to her repeating over and over the same lyric, but in a different melody. And yeah.
Would you like to kind of wrap this up with a short clip from the song?
Sure. Just probably before I finish, one last thing is
tell us.
By the end of her career, by 1973, Ahmed Ramy and Kulthum had a repertoire, a list of songs that they passed it's more than 350 songs for a 50-year career. Ahmed Ramy wrote more than 130 songs for her only. And he never took any money for that.
That is shocking. That is completely...
It was all out of love.
It's 40% of her music career and her success and her, that's just wow.
So so did Kulthum write any of her songs, or were the other songs, the other composers, other poets, things like that?
Yeah. She mainly worked with other composers and other poets.
Did they take money?
Yeah.
Some of them must have taken some money, surely.
Right?
Yeah. And actually, it caused lots of problems because lots of poets didn't like that Ahmed Ramy didn't take money from her, because they said, okay, then it would put a lot of pressure on them. Now, this is probably another subject of discussion that is very fascinating, the way Kulthum dealt with her composers and her poets during that time, and as a feminist figure in that time, as a woman that she was not married, dealing with the men dominated artistic scene, how she imposed herself, how she was very confident and very strong. She had a strong personality dealing with all of that, and always imposing kind of her choice above everything.
So we've I don't know if you've heard of it or attended it or listened to it or read it, Mustafa, but we had this book club podcast episode that was about the book Midnight in Cairo, The Divas of Egypt's Roaring Twenties. And Kulthum was one of the characters that this author kind of covered. And she was the most different from the other divas or the characters that they covered. But this kind of your presentation kind of brings this different side of her life. So I think it's nice to put all those pieces together and kind of what other sources or books or podcasts or anything would you recommend for people to check out, maybe related to this or maybe not, just from your own Mustafa's personal interest board?
Sure. Actually, I would highly recommend a documentary narrated by also one of the icons of Egypt, Omar Sharif, about Umm Kulthum's life. And in a small part, he talks about this one-sided love story, but mainly about the life of Umm Kulthum, how she made her way through the artistic scene, coming as a girl from the Delta, from the countryside, to make her way as the greatest singer ever in Egypt. I highly recommend that. There is also a book. I'm sure it was written in French, but it's called Yalil Ya'il. I took the Arabic version of it. And in a way, it has lots and lots of stories about the artistic scenes of the 20th century in Cairo, in Egypt, in Palestine, in Lebanon, and in Syria, and with many, many good pictures, the way their kind of the pictures are being drawn. It's very creative, very artistic, with small stories about Kulthum and other singers like Ismahan, Muhammad Abdul Wahab, Farid al-Atrash, etc. So this is one of the things also I highly recommend if someone wants to explore more that side during that time, because I always feel a bit nostalgic to it, although I never lived through it as a person, but I always feel that maybe a part of me belongs to that world.
I feel like you're going to be doing another AFIKRA presentation sometime
Definitely.
soon.
Yeah.
What do you already have some ideas in mind or something that you're already lined up for?
I kind of have I wanted to some probably the history of coffee.
Oh, okay. I was
Nice.
wondering if it'd be related again to like music or if it'd be something completely different. So it'd be something completely different.
It's completely different. Probably the coffee and the
Yeah.
history of Islamic mysticism and things like that. But I would also I would love to make something about Ismahan, because you told me about how in a young age they reached a lot. She died when she was 31 years old, but she already accomplished unbelievable like things. She sang many songs. She made many movies. She worked in politics. She moved between like many cities in just 31 years of life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You should totally do all of these. I think you
Yeah.
should just do every single one that you've talked about. I think that we can just make a list. It's fine.
Yeah, you'll eventually get around to it. And that's the amazing thing about the community presentations is that they're non-expert presentations. It's the opportunity for you to do something fun and new and learn something new. Outside from what you think about and obsess about and produce about every single day. But Mustafa, this was so great. And I think people will absolutely love this episode. Before we let you go, we do play this like fun trivia game where we give you just a few questions. And then, you get to see your knowledge about the Arab world. They're not that crazy hard. They're kind of silly. But okay, you ready? We're going to give you 3 questions.
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is, can you name 3 flags in the Arab world that have stars on them?
Okay, it's Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tunisia. Like you have to start with that. Okay, cool. Can you name 3 Arab dishes that don't have, like, I love food questions that don't have rice in them?
Okay. There is the couscous of North Africa.
Yeah. Any meal with that.
And I once ate mjaddara, but in Lebanon, but without rice. I don't know if it's considered like
Was
that.
it made with burghul? A lot of people make
with
it with
warghal and adas.
lentils. Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I really did. Although the children, I was in a guest in a host family, but the children didn't like it. But I really did.
Mjaddara is usually like that. Like when your mom or whoever is like, okay, today's mjaddara, everyone's like, oh man, but like, it's a really good meal. Yeah,
I love it.
It's like the boring dish in the menu for a lot of households, but it's really
one
good.
of the best though.
Yeah, I really like the one with burghul without the rice also. So you had the good one. Okay, Mustafa, we had so much fun talking to you and learning so much about this unrequited, but at the end, like kind of beautiful love story and relationship between Ahmed Ramy and Umm Kulthum. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting with Maisa and I today.
Thank you, Mustafa. This has been great.
It's been great for me as well. Thank you so much for having me and for your interest in the topic and also your questions. And I really like the interaction and the discussion that we had around Kulthum. And I really hope for future collaborations and things like that.
Yeah. Hope to have you back maybe on coffee or any other topic you pursue.
That was so interesting. I never knew. I always knew that different people wrote for Kulthum, but I never really knew the history or the stories behind any of those people. And the story of Ahmed Ramy is just, it adds so much context to some of the songs that she was singing.
Yeah. I think it'll make you look at the songs in a different way. And basically it gives you this whole new perspective about the lyrics of the songs. And you kind of know now the person to these iconic pictures and face emotions that you've seen a million times.
Yeah, definitely.